I reviewed Spider-Verse the other day, and if you missed that review, you can click the card in the top right to go watch it. But long story short, that movie's incredible. Despite how good it is, I found it oddly similar to one of my other favorite animated movies, the Lego Movie. After some research, I found out these movies share a few crew members. Phil Lord and Chris Miller are a filmmaking duo who worked on Lego Movie and Spider-Verse. They also worked on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, the 21 Jump Street remakes, and Clone High. There's actually a Clone High poster in the background of one scene in Spider-Verse, which I thought was pretty interesting. They were producers on Spider-Verse, and Phil Lord was the screenwriter, and it really shows that they were involved because a lot of the plot is pretty similar to the Lego Movie. Heck, some of it is similar to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs as well. When you write fiction, you follow tropes, which are basically story concepts that have been done before. But if you come up with your own characters and world, you can make those tropes feel fresh. That's what Lord and Miller's animated movies do. They have the same sort of structure, but have greatly different casts and worlds that make the scenarios seem different, even though they kind of aren't. So I just like to run down a few similarities I noticed between these movies. Not all of them apply to Cloudy, but I'll mention it when I can. First of all, both Lego Movie and Spider-Verse have super unique art styles. Lego Movie is CG but made to look like stop motion, and Spider-Verse is CG and made to look like a comic book. I'm sure this isn't because Lord and Miller worked on them, but it's an interesting coincidence anyways. Another thing I noticed, even back when the trailers came out, is that both movies focus on the same types of characters, who all come from different worlds. Gwen Stacy is a cool girl like Wildstyle, and it takes time for both of these characters to become friends with the protagonist. Spider-Noir is like Lego Batman, both are from dark and depressing worlds, yet that darkness is just used as a joke. And Penny Parker is like Unikitty, both are visually cutesy but they're actually really badass. Kingpin is similar in concept to Lord Business, and even the mayor from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Each of these villains are visually large to show them as a powerful threat, though Kingpin is the only one of these villains who's actually no joke. It sounds obvious, but villains need to appear large and threatening to visually show viewers that they are the villains. And lastly, the overall stories follow the same concepts. In Spider-Verse, Miles stumbles upon something he shouldn't have, the fight between Spider-Man and Green Goblin, and this gets him going on his adventure. In Lego Movie, Emmett stumbles upon the piece of resistance. Coincidentally, both of these discoveries happen at construction sites. In both movies, or actually all three movies, the main character has a device they need to deliver somewhere to save the world. In Cloudy, Flint has the kill code he needs to bring to the Flintstonifer. In Lego Movie, Emmett needs to bring the piece of resistance to the Craggle, and in Spider-Verse, Miles needs to bring the Goober to the particle accelerator. Notice how each of those devices has its own specific, memorable, and kind of comedic name. This is actually a very common story trope, but it's interesting how Lord and Miller have used it in each of their animated movies. This trope gives the protagonist a clear goal that the audience can easily understand and follow. What happens on the way to the goal is the fun stuff, but we all know the movie will end with the character delivering that device. Lord of the Rings is another example of this type of story, and that's completely unrelated to the ones I've been mentioning. So that's all the comparisons I noticed. It's not too many, but I thought it was an interesting thing to talk about anyways. I love all these movies, so I thought it was pretty interesting how similar they are. There's nothing wrong with fiction being similar to other works, because there's so much that can go into a story to make it different. I just found it interesting how these stories have the same writers. They clearly know what types of stories they like to tell in animation. It's a pretty typical hero's journey, but the creative worlds and characters are what make it seem atypical. An average everyday person gets a call to action and needs to deliver something to stop some evil thing, but they can't do it alone and work with their group of friends who are usually a bunch of wholesome goofballs. It works, and if it isn't broken, don't fix it. If you can think of any other similarities I didn't mention, be sure to mention them in the comments. Thanks for watching.